Hello, this is Keith Owen. Welcome back. Today's tutorial will be on the Excel 365 filter function, and I'm going to use various different versions of this to come up with the results that we're looking for in this particular data set that I'm using. And I'm just using a data set that was generated through ChatGPT, and it's basically a sales data set with all these different columns associated with that. And so if you stay to the end, you're going to see a specific thing that I just figured out myself, and that's using the count A function in conjunction with the filter function. And when you do that, you get different results than what you might expect by using that. So anyways, let's first start out with using a filter function to get data back relating to a specific date range. So we're going to scroll over here to the right, and this is a long formula, and we're using different functions in conjunction with the filter function. So let's go ahead and build this out together, and then I'll show you exactly what Excel is doing in order to bring back the conditions that we expect. So let's first work with the filter function. So in other words, let's work on the inside out. So let's build the filter function first. Filter, tab over that. Now our array is basically, in this case, I'm going to select everything in our data range. So the array is, I'm going to start from the beginning, Control Shift down arrow, Control Shift right, and then Control backspace to bring us back to our formula. And then our second argument to the filter function is it's going to be a combination of an AND condition. So we're going to start off with a filter function, with a parens, because we want to analyze this first. So we're gonna do we're gonna select the date range. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and select the column B, which is our date. Control Shift down arrow, Control backspace, and then we want that to have a starting date of March 3rd, March 1st of 2024 within our data set. So we want it to be greater than or equal to this date. Let's see. And then I'm going to use the date function within that. And we're going to start out with 2024. The month is 3. The day is 1. Let's close out the date function. And then let's close out this condition itself. And then in order to do an AND condition within the filter, we use the multiplication symbol, which is the asterisk. And now let's create the second condition that we want. Again, we're going to use the date column. Control Shift down arrow, Control backspace. In this case, we want it to be less than or equal to April 7th of 2024. So we're going to less than or equal to date. 2024 is the year. The month is April, which is 4, and then the day is 7. Close out the date function. Now we have to close out the second condition within this. And then, since we're just building the filter function now, we want to close out the filter function and then press enter. So in this case, what we did was we brought back all the results that fall within this date range, beginning with greater than or equal to March 1st and less than or equal to April 7th. And in a second, we're going to go through this step by step to see how Excel is actually creating this array, this filter results. But let's go ahead and choose the columns that we want, which is basically the date column, customer name column, product category, and total sales amount. So we do that. We're going to now wrap this filter function and choose cows. And choose cows is just basically another function in Excel that allows you to pass in an array, okay, and choose the columns that you want to display out of that array. Now, since within the filter function, I chose the entire data set, which means every single column in that data set, now I want to specifically choose only the columns that I want. So the first argument is the array, which is the result of this filter function. Let's go back down to the end here and comma. Now I wanted to display out of that certain columns, and you do that by passing in the number of the column that you want. So in this case, column 2 out of the array, column 3 out of the array, column 5, and then column 10. Close that out, press enter. So as you can see, it brought back only those columns within that array. Now let's take this a step further, and now let's sort this array here. So let's go ahead and use the sort function. We're going to pass in an array, which is the result of both the filter and choose cows function. And then we want to sort, comma, the sort index. What is the sort index? Well, the sort index is going to be column 2, okay, and then comma, and then do we want this in ascending or descending order? And we specify that by pressing over here to the right. You'll see these argument values, ascending, which is 1, or -1. Okay, so basically I sorted by the date, or actually no, I did the second column within the array, which is the second, which is after results of the choose cows. So the second column in that array is the customer name, and I sorted it by ascending order. So as you can see, now it's sorted in alphabetical order by the name. Okay, now let's figure out what is Excel doing with this filter function. How is it getting the results as an AND condition in this particular case? So let's do this step by step. So the first condition within the filter function is this right here. So we want to extract this out of here, just a formula. As you can see, it returns values of trues and falses, and I'll explain that in a second. Let's Control C, escape. Now let's go ahead and paste this, equal. Okay, what Excel just did was it took this condition, okay, it went to the date column, okay, and it evaluates this condition cell by cell within that column. And it asks itself, and it starts with cell B7, does B7, is it greater than or equal to this date that it evaluates, which is greater than or equal to March 1st? If it is, it returns true. If it isn't, it will return false. If I scroll down here, you'll see, well, here, let's do this an easier way. Let's do Control-Shift-L. It turns on the filters, okay? Oh, wait, escape. Let's do Control-Z. Control Shift L, turns on the filters for this area right here. And then if you navigate up to the column header where the filter is, a shortcut key to activate that would be Alt down arrow, and then you could tab through these individual selections or use the arrow key. Okay, so in this particular case, everything is greater than or equal to March 1st. How do I know that? Again, right here, it just shows true. So that means that every single value is true in this case. Let's do the same thing for the second condition in this array. So let's copy the second condition. Okay, let's just copy that, Control C, escape. And then let's go over here. Let's press equal, Control V, enter. And let's do the same thing. Alt down arrow. As you can see, now this condition brings back trues and falses. So now, okay, so this is what this is doing. So it evaluates this condition first. It returns an array of trues and falses. Then it evaluates this condition, brings back trues and falses for that also. After it does those individual conditions, then Excel will multiply the result set, okay, together to get one array with trues or falses. So let's do this. Now let's use this equal. Let's take this value here times this value here. Press enter and it returns a 0. Now, why did Excel return a 0? So when Excel evaluates a Boolean value with another Boolean value, it'll return either a 0 or a 1, meaning if there's a true and a false multiplied together, which is a 1 and a 0, it's going to return 0. If there's a false and a false multiplied together, that's a 0 times a 0 is a 0. If it multiplies a false times a true, it's a 0 times a 1, which is 0. The only time it's going to return a 1 is when it has a value of a true, which is 1, times another true, which is 1. 1 times 1 is equal to 1. So let's carry this formula down. And let's go here. Let's press Alt down arrow. And as you can see, it returns, it has two values, zeros and ones, okay? So let's go over here. Now, when Excel does those three steps, evaluates condition 1, then evaluates condition 2, then it evaluates both conditions together, it returns a single array, which is what we have here, which is zeros and ones. Okay, then what Excel does, it applies this result set here, this last column here, to every single row in our filter range, which is A7 through L1006. And if it has a 0 in this row, it doesn't return the result set. It will only return a value here in the final result if this value here for a specific row is 1. So as you can see, this was 1 over here, and that's what was returned over here in this filter array. So that's what Excel is doing, how it computes the filter range using an AND condition. Okay, so now let's go to another way of doing the filter condition, but in combination with the count A. Okay, so at this time, we're going to use the filter function, okay? and we're going to count the number of orders for a specific condition. So let's go scroll over here. Okay, what I did was I built a data validation list over here for two conditions. We want to count the number of orders for the brand, okay, or the region, okay. So in order to do this, let's go over here. Let's scroll over here. Okay. A data validation list is easy to build from your data set. All you have to do is go up to the ribbon, go to data, and then over here, data validation, which is in the data tools group. And then what we do over here, we're going to select list, which is, I already did that. And what you want to do is select the range where you want to get the values for your list. In this particular case, I selected column F, which is where the brand values exist. So if we go over here, which is brand, okay, that's all I did was over there. And we do the same thing with region. And the good thing about Excel 365, when you do this, it automatically extracts the unique values out of that list that you select. So these are all unique values in that particular column. The same thing with region. These are all the unique values that exist in our data set for that particular column. Okay, so we do that. Now let's go over here. Now let's build our first formula, but let's take a step back and let's delete this, and we're going to work ourselves back to our final result. Okay, now the COUNTIFS function, you would think, okay, let's count the number of orders for a specific condition. However, COUNTIFS is only allows you to have and conditions. Basically, it's not one or the other. So in other words, it doesn't allow you to do count whether the brand is this or the region is this value over here. So let's build this function first. So let's put count ifs, tab over our criteria range. Okay, again, let's our criteria range exists in our brand column. So let's scroll over here, our brand here, Control Shift down arrow, Control backspace. And what is the criteria that we want to find that exists in this criteria range? Well, it's going to be the brand value that we select out of this data validation list. Comma 2. Our criteria range number 2 is whether or not the value sits in this specific region that we select over here. So the region column is, let's see, right over here. Control Shift down arrow, Control backspace, comma. The criteria, what is the criteria that we want to find in this range that we just selected? Our criteria is whatever we have over here. Press enter, or close out the COUNTIFS function, press enter, and we get the value of 3. Now the reason why it selects this is, let's go over here. So our values are Microsoft and West region. So let's turn on the filters, Control Shift L. Let's go highlight the brand, Alt down arrow. We want Microsoft. Deselect all, and let's type in Microsoft. And we got that, okay. And now we want to select the region, which is West. Let's go over here and select West as our filter, press OK. And as you can see, it returns 3 rows, which is what that formula brought. So let's Control Shift L to turn off the filters. Let's scroll over here. Now we got there. Now let's think about this. Now let's use the count A function uh, uh, to bring back the number of orders for this specific combination. So to count A, okay, in conjunction with the filter function. So let's build the filter function together. So let's do this. So let's equal filter our range. Let's go over here, Control Shift down arrow, Control Shift right arrow, Control backspace. Let's scroll over here. Oops, something went wrong here. Let's do this again. Let's see. Let's scroll over here. Okay, that's our array that we want to look for our end result, comma. Now we want to, let's do the first condition. Okay, the first condition is our brand. So we want the brand column. Control backspace. Let's press F2. So we want to evaluate this condition first. And what do we want that equal to? We want it to equal to whatever the value is selected here. Okay. Now we want to use the plus condition this time. What does a plus do in Excel? Or in this particular filter function, and it's going to evaluate this condition, or it's going to evaluate our next condition. Okay. And an or, it means it's an or condition. So it's either or. It's not both. Well, it can be both, but in this particular case, we want to do the or condition. So now we want the region. So let's go over to regions column, Control backspace. Now we want that to equal to whatever value that we select here. Okay. Now let's close that out. Press enter. The reason why we get a spell error is because we have a value over here, 3. Okay. This is what's with the array functions in Excel will do. So if there's something blocking the results of this, it will give you a spell error. So let's go ahead and just delete this first. Okay, so now we corrected that spell error. So for this condition, so it looks for all values in our range, filter range, if it's equal to Microsoft or if it's equal to the region West. Okay. So that's the filter function. Now our result is that we want to do the count the number of orders for this specific condition. It's either or. So let's do the count A. Let's filter this, or let's wrap it with count A. And count A. And we're going to pass it the range. Okay, let's press enter. Now we get this value of 3,036 orders. Well, I know there's something wrong with that because of the fact that if we count the number of rows in our data set, I highlighted every single row. If you come down here to the status bar, we have 1,000 rows. So how can it be over 1,000 orders? Well, I'm going to tell you something with if you use the filter function and the count A function, what it does. Count A, again, counts the number of values in a range that are non-blank. So if I go over here, count A, it says counts the number of cells in a range that are not empty, okay? that are non-empty. So if I go back over here, this is very important to understand. If I go over here, I'm only selecting one column. If I highlight every single row in that column in that data range, it's counting every single cell. Since I only have one column, it's counting the number of rows, and it's basically 1,000 rows. Okay, now let's go over here. Okay, now remember what the filter returned back. So let's remove the count A again. Or let's just copy the filter function. Copy it to another cell. Now look at this here. The filter range will give you an array. Okay, this array is, even though it lives in one cell, it returns all the rows and all the columns. Okay, so if we highlight this, we got 253 rows for this filter array. Remember that number. Let's scroll back up here. Now we want to count the number of columns. We got number of columns. We got 12 columns. So now let's do this formula. 253 rows times 12 columns, and you get that 3036 as a value. So that's how that is coming up with our results. Okay. So now how do we correct this? We want to count the number of orders that are returned within this filtered range. So how do we do that? By using filter. We could do that by using it with another function in Excel, and that function is called rows. Let's scroll over here. Let's go over here. I'm going to copy this formula, equal ROWS. Now we get the correct result back. Now we get back 253 rows, which is what we got over here. Control Shift down arrow. If you look at the status bar, we got 253 rows. So that's how that is working in Excel. Hopefully these couple examples gave you an idea how to use the filter function within your data set to get the results that you want. It's very important that you learn not only one function, but how you could use multiple functions with each other. Again, I want to thank you for stopping by today. Have a blessed day, and also please subscribe to the channel, and also like and comment on this video also. I want to thank you for your time. I look forward to the next video, and have a great day. Bye now.